My name is Shauna Berry, and I teach 4th grade. We are self-contained except for math and science. The presentation that I'm going to share with you today focuses on our unwavering commitment to the needs of our students. The focus of the presentation is the implementation of a new intervention model based on an analysis of student data. The first thing that I did when I started this project was to take a look at the data. And I looked at PSSA data, DIBELS data, and foresight assessments, and I used those over the course of the past several years. And what I wanted to do was to determine the curricular implications and the relative effectiveness of what we're currently doing, the current intervention model. And at first glance, I thought, oh, our kids are doing very well, and why would I want to change anything? However, after I looked closer at our student data, I was able to see that some of the students are not receiving appropriate interventions or those quality enrichment opportunities, and the result of that is that little student growth. The current PVAS data, which I do have a slide about, reinforces that some of these students are not maintaining that year's worth of growth, and that we are failing just to meet those individual students' instructional needs. The next several slides take a little bit deeper look at the data that was available, and these data points just provide a framework of the students' performance. The data does not include those curricular-based assessments, but they are very carefully considered when making informed educational decisions within the classroom. And a true understanding of this data, I feel, would take a tremendous amount of time to analyze and interpret, and that's not the focus of the presentation that I'm giving today. However, it was included just to provide just a very general understanding of the students' recent performance. So let's look at the data. This data indicates the percentage of students who have achieved that proficient or advanced score on the PSSA reading over the past several years. And a closer analysis of this data would be needed just to determine the individual and small group growth trends. The next slide is PSSA math, and I just included this as kind of a frame of reference. However, the intervention model that I am presenting today and proposing will primarily focus on just the development of developing and strengthening those literacy skills. The data in this slide contains the composite DIBELS scores. These are administered to all students in grades K to 2, and they are given three times throughout the school year. Based on the scores from this assessment, some students are progress monitored more, either once or twice a month, and the DIBELS scores are one of the primary ways in which we use the student data and to determine those groupings of students. Our district pretty recently adopted the foresight assessments as another means of gathering student data. Therefore, the longitudinal data is just not currently available. So I included overall proficiency rates for students in grades 3 to 5, just for both reading and math. The data obtained from this assessment will assist in creating appropriate instructional plans. And then I also, again, included the math scores. However, the primary focus is on those literacy skills. And then there's PVAS. The PVAS data allows a teacher to take a very specific look into student performance, and in particular that growth that we want to see. And this data is utilized to look at those trends, those educational trends, and at subgroup performance. So after looking at that data, I had to decide what it was telling me. And our current plan allows us the opportunity to look at numerous pieces of data, but what I realize is that we are falling very, very short on planning appropriate instructional plans and instructional intervention plans to address the students' diverse needs. What is being proposed is the implementation of a new intervention model, and this intervention model would more effectively and efficiently use what resources we have already available to us to meet the individual needs of the students through a systematic and explicit intervention model. So what I had to do was to look at what we already have available to us, what current professional resources as well as instructional resources our district already has. In addition to the regular education teachers, there are three reading specialists, 3 learning support teachers, 1 gifted teacher, a speech and language therapist, an English as a second language teacher, a social worker, and various other therapists and that work with the students just based on their individual IEP goals. Our current research-based interventions that we have available are Sunday 1 and 2, Rewards, Great Leaps, Read Naturally, Early Success, Soar to Success, and a variety of other curriculum interventions that are aligned to the current reading and math series. The intervention model that I am proposing would not add any additional personnel or research-based interventions, and research-based interventions would just continue to be assessed with individual student needs. The proposed model would allow for the school the opportunity to focus on all of our resources towards each grade level for 40 minutes per day. The Tier 3 students, those are the students who are receiving learning support, would work with the learning support teacher on a variety of IEP goals and individual interventions. The Tier 2 students, and those are the students who are receiving reading support services, would then be broken up into 3 smaller groups, and they're Tier 2C, Tier 2B, and Tier 2A. And they would receive those specific interventions based on what their literacy needs are. For example, some students may need comprehension, some students may need fluency, while others may require more work on phonological awareness skills. The students who are identified as in need of gifted support services would then go to work with their gifted support teacher on those GIEP goals and enrichment opportunities. There are other students who will receive other services that are identified, such as occupational therapy, physical therapy, vision and hearing therapy, ESL or social work. They would go and in turn work with those teachers and therapists during this intervention block as well. The students that would remain inside of the classroom would then be flexed across various regular education teachers based on what their needs were and the applicable skills. For example, a student may not qualify for gifted support, but they may need enrichment opportunities for various skills based on what they're working on during that particular day or that particular week. So these groups would need to remain very highly flexible, and they would vary from week to week based upon those student assessments. A daily common planning time, as we learned in our leadership class, would need to be implemented, and this would allow for that communication between the teachers and between the administrators. The potential benefits of this model would include more individualized interventions, additional support for each grade level, additional opportunities for interventions for those students, as well as making those intervention groups much smaller. There would be less disruption to the classroom schedule, as well as more of a consistent schedule for our students. There would need to be ongoing analysis of the data. So monthly team meeting would have to be held with the teachers who are involved, and they would discuss the current interventions that are in place as well as the student progress. Multiple pieces of data, including the progress monitoring data, would have to be carefully reviewed at each meeting and by all the team members. The instructional plans and resources that would be implemented would be based on individual student needs, and a daily common planning time for all teachers would have to be instituted in order to allow this to happen. The administrator should be present during this time just to monitor the delivery of instruction, as well as to provide input and to assess the planning of the instruction. As we've learned in leadership, any good instructional model, the key would be that regular communication among the teachers. And I hope that this intervention model would be considered. Using this instructional model, I feel, would help to ensure that the students in our classroom are receiving instruction each day that's individualized and that is based on what they need, ensuring that they're not just getting an advanced or proficient on a test, that they are making that year's worth of growth that we need from them.